Now, we said purpose attracts purpose and purpose partners with purpose. So we said that the purpose of a seed partners with the purposes of the soil. So in of itself, it has a purpose. Inside of every seed is purposed to produce a harvest. Every seed is purposed to produce of its own kind. But when it partners with another element or soil that's different than it, then it will automatically activate. See, if you're not in purpose, then you can't activate purpose. And what I mean by that is if you're not in your purpose, how can you activate purposes? So a seed left on a shelf can't function in its purpose, even though purpose is full on the inside of that seed. But when that seed begins to be planted or partnered into something else that also has its own purposes, then something unseen to the naked eye causes synergy. It causes things to happen. So where are you planted? If you're not planted in the right soil, then you'll spoil. If you're not planted in the right soil, and you will never grow into who you need to be. That's why places are important. Where God positions you is important, because when you are planted there, something activates on the inside of you. So when your purpose inside of you is in a place of trial, if it's in, so that's why you got to look at your life differently than how other people look. People will assume that something in the ground is buried. But if your perspective is that you've been planted, then you understand purpose. Purpose, people understands what it means to be planted. People who don't have a purpose perspective see themselves buried. So a single person in singleness with the right perspective will see themselves planted in a season of singleness. That season of singleness was meant to activate something in them that will position them that when they grow from that prerequisite season, they will bear fruit in the season they desire. But a person with a poor perspective in their singleness will see themselves buried in their singleness, meaning dead in their singleness, not active in their singleness. But when you're planted by the planter, by the gardener, then something inside of you will activate because you understand the purpose of the soil. You understand the purpose of the season. And then when someone comes alongside you in the right season, then purposes will attract. Then they will be able to fully function their purpose. You will be fully able to function in your purposes, and supernaturally, they will be able to coexist in purposes. So, for instance, my wife and I have different skill sets. My wife and I have different purposes, right? There is impossible for me to function in the purpose of a woman. It's impossible for me to function in the purposes of a wife. It's impossible. Right? And it's impossible for her to function in the purposes of a man. But even though we have unique biological purposes, when combined, it produces. When partnered, it produces. So when a wife and a husband come together, it produces synergy in the marriage. So right now, my wife in her purpose got degrees in English. In her purpose was synergized to be inside of school systems. I didn't know that when I first met her that I was going to be in schools, but God knew. And sometimes when you meet a person, sometimes the purposes draw you, even though you never seen the purposes drawn from you. But then after a period of time, we begin to see that her unique purposes coincides and coexists with my purposes and vice versa. And so that's why I love when God confirms, because when God confirms, he doesn't necessarily continuously confirm. The thing in of itself confirms itself because the purposes are confirming. Right? And so purposes attract. So you don't want to be in a situation where purposes subtract. A lot of people are in subtractive purpose relationships. They're in subtractive situations, not attractive situations, because they don't know who they are. Let's keep going for time's sake.